Right, so without further ado, I'll quickly introduce myself and then we'll move on to Nigel. So good afternoon, everybody. My name's Giles Barker. I'm the co-founder and CEO at KisanHub. I've been working at KisanHub for the last 7 years and building our team from just myself and Sachin when we met in Cambridge in 2013. And now we have a team of about 37 across 2 locations. So in Cambridge, where I am today in my flat, but also we have a location in India and Pune as well. Nigel, I'll quickly pass on to you, and it'd be great to get a quick introduction, and then we'll crack on with the Q&A.
Thanks, Charles. So I'm Nigel Trood. My background, for those that don't know me, I suppose my career is split into sort of 3 chunks. First chunk was I spent 12 years at Sainsbury's, of which I had nine wonderful years in fresh produce. A long time ago, when things were very, very different to they are now. I then spent the second sort of chunk of my career working in a branded environment. So I worked for a company called Britvic Soft Drinks, which managed brands like Robinson's and Pepsi. And then I went to Red Bull. I was there 10 years, of which 5 of those years I was running that company. And then I sort of found what was really in my heart, and I'd been there all along. And I actually then left Red Bull and worked for a company called Fresca, who I suppose many of you would know. Fresca is the biggest independent fresh produce business in the UK. Worked there on their board and running a number of their companies.
But just to kick off, Nigel, one of the things that I always find super fascinating, and coming from a business background and doing a business degree, is the role of brands in particular markets. And your experience of brands has come from kind of some of the strongest brands in the UK, be it kind of Britvic and Sainsbury's, but also, I believe, one of the strongest global brands in Red Bull. And one of the things that I've always been really interested in is how marketing and branding changes between businesses who sell directly to consumers and businesses like KisanHub and the fresh produce business like Fresca. And I wanted to just kind of touch on how and what lessons have you learned from the consumer-facing businesses and that you've brought into the fresh produce industry?
Whoa, that's a question. Yeah. I guess if I go back, when I worked at Sainsbury's, I didn't probably appreciate that they were a brand. In my head, most of what I thought I was doing was managing own label products, which may sound slightly strange, but I didn't really have an appreciation of brands. I really got an appreciation at the end of my career at Sainsbury's, because I ended up becoming the category manager for beer and spirits. And it was the first time I'd met these kind of like really powerful brands that had a business that went way beyond Sainsbury's, whereas I'd been working pretty much with farmers, whether it was in the protein industry or fresh produce, and it was much more about working together to deliver a product that went on the shelf that had Sainsbury's label on. So I came up against something very different, and I suppose the biggest difference for me was that they had, as brands, real clear identity and clarity about what they were and certainly what they weren't. And I suppose what I took out of that was that actually you need to build your own identity. You really need to build your own consumer proposition, and you really do need a point of difference, because otherwise you just become like a B brand. So in fresh produce, there aren't that many, big brands. There's quite a lot of brands, smaller brands. And what's been, out of some of the sort of darkness over the last few months, what's been really great to see is that either some new brands being able to populate the market, because suddenly selling from business to consumer has actually become possible and credible. And then there's some other brands that have been around a while that actually, because of the online platforms becoming more important, become more visible. So I think it's a really key time for the fresh produce industry around branding. But I would reiterate that you do need a point of difference. It's not about sticking a label on a packet of carrots.
Yeah, absolutely. Where have you seen kind of the big changes in terms of how kind of data and software and has come into kind of the fresh produce industry? Kind of value have you seen from that happening?
I was thinking about this the other day. When I was a young trainee produce buyer at Sainsbury's, everything was pretty much on the phone or by fax. So every order given to a grower was actually by phone. yeah, so most things were on paper and most things were in the head. And when I look now and I think about, well, so what's developed and changed? I see certainly from the retail side, the data that they are now providing their growers, their suppliers, is unbelievable. You know, in terms of order patterns, consumer sale patterns, seasonal patterns, wastage figures, stuff that we didn't see back in the day. And then I think also what's happened is there's been an awful lot more technology that's gone into certainly into the pack houses. They're much more sophisticated than when I was buying 30 years ago, and all of that has allowed data to make decisions. I think the one area I would say is when I think about it again is when I think about the procurement side, we're still quite reliant again on relationship, phone call. So we'll speak to people and say, oh, how's things and what's the crop looking like? When would you think it will be ready? And experts, absolute experts, growers will tell us, and we'll write that down. And probably there's more that can be done there. And then the other thing that for sure, what isn't possible at the moment really is everything doesn't join up. So what we will need at some point is a platform for the platforms. People will spend millions on an ERP system and really get their finance department working really well, or the pack house really working much better. But that won't then talk to, for instance, what's happening in fields, and won't talk to, say, the customer. So loads of progress, but joining up some of this stuff will be, for me, kind of the next step on the journey. And particularly now, because a lot of the business that's done, particularly in retail, is on longer term commitments with more strategic partnerships. So actually, there's a real appetite to be more joined up about the whole supply chain.
Big thank you to Nigel for this. Really appreciate your time. Great insight, and really enjoyed speaking with you. And thank you to everybody for attending. Hopefully, I'll see you all soon.
Thanks, Charles. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Cheers, Nigel.
Thanks. Thank you.